All right, let's get right into it. If you're looking at the Singapore property market, there is one massive question that comes up again and again. Should you buy a brand new launch or go for a resale condo? This choice goes way beyond just lifestyle. It is a critical financial decision. And today, we're going to break it all down. Okay, so let's really dive deep here, because this isn't just about getting a new set of keys. In a market as fast-moving as Singapore's, the path you choose has some major long-term consequences for your wealth, for your cash flow, and honestly, just for how you live. So which one is actually the smarter move for you? So here's our game plan. We'll start with the big picture debate, then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of price, space, cash flow, and all the risks involved. And then, at the end, we'll put it all together to help you make your smarter choice. First things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. We need to clearly define our two main players in this property showdown. I mean, what are we really talking about when we say new launch versus resale? So here's the bottom line. With a new launch, you're buying a promise, a vision of the future based on a fancy show lot and some drawings. With a resale, though, you're buying reality. What you see is literally what you get. And maybe even more important, how you pay for them is like night and day. One lets you pay in stages, the other requires a big chunk of cash right away. All right, now for the million-dollar question. Literally, let's talk money. New launches almost always cost more. So why is that? And is paying that premium actually worth it in the long run? And this is absolutely key to understanding the whole thing. When you buy a new launch, you're not just paying for the concrete and steel. The developer has baked in the expected growth in value over the next, say, 3 to 4 years of construction. You're basically paying today for what they think it's going to be worth tomorrow. And this chart just lays it out so clearly. On a per square foot basis, you're often looking at a 20, 30, sometimes even a 40% price premium for a new launch compared to a similar resale unit just down the street. That's the price you pay for that brand new smell. But the resale market, well, it fires back with transparency. Its price isn't some guess about the future. No, it's a reflection of right here, right now. It's based on what real people have actually paid for similar units. You can look up the whole transaction history. It gives you a really clear market-tested sense of value. Okay, moving on from the price tag, let's talk about how you'll actually live in these places. How do these two choices really stack up when it comes to the space you're going to call home? This is a really interesting point that people don't talk about enough. There's this massive trend to keep the total price from getting too crazy. Developers have just made new condo units smaller. They call it efficient. But what it often means is less storage, tighter rooms, and just less flexibility for your life. And here is where resale condos have a huge, huge advantage. Go look at some older developments. It's not that hard to find a 3-bedroom unit that's well over 1,200 square feet. That kind of space has become a real luxury, especially now that so many of us are working from home. Okay, let's talk about how this whole decision is going to hit your bank account. This part is all about your money, how much you need up front, and when you can start seeing a return on it. Now, for new launches, this progressive payment plan is a massive draw. You put down a little bit of cash to start, and the rest of your payments are staggered over a few years, tied to construction milestones. This is a game changer for someone like an HDB upgrader who needs that time to sell their current place. And this table just sums it all up perfectly, doesn't it? New launch, you need less cash up front. Resale, you need a lot more cash a lot sooner. But, and this is a big but, with a resale, you can move in or rent it out for income, like right away. So it really boils down to what you value more, smaller initial payments or getting an asset that works for you immediately. In Singapore's property market, government policy is a really big deal. So how do these two property types handle the pressure when rules change? And just as important, how easy is it to sell them when it's time for you to move on? You see, new launches are super sensitive to government cooling measures, but that can actually create some opportunities. Developers are on a deadline. They have to pay a huge tax, the ABSD, if they don't sell all their units in 5 years. So if they're getting nervous, you might just snag a discount. The risk, though, when everyone gets their keys at the same time, the rental and resale markets can suddenly get very, very crowded. The resale market, on the other hand, it's usually a bit more stable. Prices are often supported by people who are buying a home to actually live in, not just to flip. and that provides a solid foundation that makes the market less jumpy when policies change. Okay, so we've looked at the price, the space, the cash flow, and the risks. We've laid out all the evidence. So now, the final verdict. How do you actually pull all this information together to make your smarter choice? A new launch is probably the winner for you if you're an HDB upgrader trying to manage your cash, an investor who loves that capital efficiency, or maybe you just love the idea of being the very first person to live there with all the brand new facilities. You're playing the long game here, betting on appreciation. But if space for your growing family is the #1 thing on your list, or if you're an investor who needs that rental income starting from day one, or hey, if you just prefer the certainty of a proven property with a clear price history, then the resale market is making a really, really strong case. So here's the most important takeaway. There's no single right answer here. There's no universal winner in this whole debate. The truly smarter choice is the one that's perfectly aligned with your finances, your lifestyle, and your personal timeline. At the end of the day, it's not about new versus old. It's about alignment. It's about finding the perfect fit for you. We've given you the framework, all the pieces of the puzzle. So the final question is really yours to answer. Which choice is going to build the future that you want?